Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today, I was asked to talk about net neutrality, somewhat big in the news just kind of recently, because President Obama brought it up. He says, I'm a supporter of net neutrality, I believe in a free and open internet, which is a little bit strange because the White House has been a little bit back and forth on copyright law and like freedom of information. It's kind of weird. There's a lot of lobbying involved in the whole issue of like information rights and how we're going to handle information and the internet going forward. I mean, like SOPA's been a big deal. Europe has had their own stuff going on, and of course we've also got the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement, which the White House has been backing really hard. And this is supposed to basically introduce SOPA into law again. Is one of the things it's supposed to do, except the TPP is completely stalled out because it's a trade agreement, and we have to get other countries to agree to SOPA if we are gonna enact it with the TPP, and that one's like really shady, but it's been stalled out for like months and months and months because it's full of really controversial legal stuff. So yeah, no telling how that's going to turn out. Just every now and then they leak documents, and it's illegal to have leaked the documents, but they leak the documents anyway. And then people kind of go through it and they summarize what's in the documents and so on and so forth. But net neutrality, though. Net neutrality has been a very hot topic lately, also for a couple of reasons. Very political. What net neutrality was originally they passed a law, sort of a regulation, stating that the FCC could regulate how information was transferred across the internet lines. This mostly having to do with our internet service providers. So the way that it worked is that our internet service provider couldn't charge you based on the type of data that you were using. Like if you downloaded a video, or if you downloaded a text file, if you took it from YouTube, or if you got the video from Amazon, or if you got it from iTunes, it didn't matter where you got it from or what the type of data was. You got that data same cost as all the rest of your data. They could charge you like a bandwidth plan, like they could charge you for higher speeds, they could charge you for like greater bandwidth use or whatever, but they cannot charge you for going to YouTube as opposed to going to one of the sites that they own. This is a very big deal because a lot of companies, like for example Time Warner, are owned by major media conglomerates, and these major media conglomerates of course have their own websites, their own television programs, their cable providers, their content providers. So the law was enacted so these content providers couldn't provide preferential service to their own websites and what have you. Like if you want to go to YouTube and you have Time Warner, then Time Warner Cable can't charge you extra for YouTube. You get YouTube at the same price that you get whatever Time Warner is providing. That's what net neutrality is. Or so it was. The trouble was that I think it was Verizon took net neutrality to court, and they said that the FCC didn't have these rights, and the courts agreed. And I believe this was a Supreme Court decision, if I remember correctly. And it was a somewhat split decision. Maybe it wasn't. I can't remember. Whatever the case was, though, they ruled against it. They said, actually, the way the law is written, the FCC can't have these regulations. So what they have to do now is they have to propose a new regulation. Currently, we don't have net neutrality. We're trying to wait and see what they're going to do with the regulations. Originally, they proposed just forgetting about it. They said, you know what, let's just trust the cable providers. That's where we're going to go with this. We'll let the cable providers prove that they're trustworthy and that they're great. You know, Comcast, everybody loves Comcast. I mean, I heard that Comcast, whenever they sneeze, kittens fly out. And they're covered in snot. It's a little bit disgusting, but they're adorable. If you just, if you rub them off with a towel, give them a bath. They don't like the bath very much. They're cats. But after the bath, you can sit them and, you can pet the cat. It's great. Comcast, beautiful, beautiful company. And so this is kind of what they're proposing. So the FCC has a website, and they put their proposals up online for people to like respond. And this plan of like, let's let Comcast decide what's fair, got just so much backlash. Same thing, there's a big merger going on. Comcast is trying to merge with Time Warner. And in fact, they were so sure they believed it was a sure thing, to the point to where like Time Warner was putting data through Comcast's machines or something like that. This was one that I heard about. I don't remember. I didn't read about this. This was someone else was telling me that they were doing this. But apparently they were very, very sure that it was going to go through. But this has also come under scrutiny because a lot of people, your internet service providers have regional monopolies, which means that for most areas that people live in, except for like major cities, there's usually like 1 or 2 providers that you can choose from. Like if you have Time Warner, you probably don't have Comcast. And if you have Comcast, you probably don't have Time Warner, and you know, vice versa, of course. Makes sense, logically speaking. But yeah, but you usually just have like 1 or 2 major providers to choose from. And you really can't switch your package around. So if one guy screws you, that's the only guy in town, you're screwed. And they actually do this, like local municipalities will make these agreements. They'll sign contracts and they'll say like, yeah, we'll give you exclusive rights to lay down your lines, and we won't let anybody else lay down any lines. And there's a reason for that. It's not just like corporate evil or government evil or whatever it is. It's also because there's only so much room for so many lines. If you had like 100 companies that came into town and they all laid down their own wires, you'd soon have like a ridiculous number of wires stretched all across the city. It would be really inefficient. They'd be digging up the roads all the time. It would just be crap. And in fact, Google Fiber, which has been going down, has run into this problem where they have to get clearance from every municipality that they want to build in, and they have to get an okay to go in and lay down their fiber lines. This has been an issue because some places that have monopolies are lobbying against it. They don't want this. They don't want Google to come in and compete with them. So they go in and they say, don't let them put down their lines. Like we'll upgrade in the next. We'll upgrade later. Just don't let them put in the lines. So they get into politics and they kind of drag their feet. And of course, the people don't want to have anything to do with it. Most people kind of hate their cable providers. A lot of people don't really like their ISPs. They're mostly regional monopolies, and they know it, and they price gouge, and they don't really offer very good customer service. I believe that Comcast had like the worst customer service in the country for a while. They had that rating. And so, yes, not well appreciated by most people, the ISPs. And so that's kind of the situation that we're looking at right now is the FCC. They post these things. And the reason is like the FCC, the people in the FCC, they're like former workers with the ISPs or with the media conglomerates or whatever. They're friends, So you hear about their plans, and you can clearly tell that somebody from the media industry came in and was like, yeah, so all you need to do is just not pass a regulation, and we will just sneeze kittens out, and then everyone will be so happy. They'll all have a cat. Everybody will have a cat. And for people who are allergic to cats, we'll sneeze hypoallergenic kittens. Believe us. I mean, it's all on the paper. Like, this is how it's going to work. So, yeah, that's kind of the conflict. This is the conflict with net neutrality. But since then, after that outlash against this plan to basically do nothing and just let the companies run amok, they've since been trying to propose new net neutrality plans going forward. But every time they do it, you can tell that there's a lot of influence from the media sector to try and get these special benefits for themselves so that they can do fast lanes and slow lanes. So what I will do now, I will explain to you in a perfect world, in a perfect theoretical world, what either plan will do. In a perfect theoretical world, if you allowed the companies to do exactly whatever they wanted without interfering, then ideally they would maintain the same speed for everybody, nothing would change, but if a really large company wanted faster service, they could pay for it, and then these companies would take that money that they got and they would build faster lines to go to these companies. And that would be more efficient because the really wealthy companies would have faster service. And yes, and then of course these companies would sneeze cats out of their nose because it's an ideal world. Everybody would have a cat. It would be beautiful. That's the ideal plan behind this whole thing. The idea that they want to pay for like tiered service or like bundled service. And their claim is that if they allow bundled service or tiered service, or if they allow like fast lanes, and they want to call them ordinary lanes, then it'll be better for everyone. It'll be cheaper. This is what they say in theory. In practice, though, because they're regional monopolies, what most people are pretty sure they're going to do is they're going to have slow lanes and they're going to have normal lanes. And the normal lanes will be the ones that go to the companies, these big companies that can afford it. So what they'll do is they already charge. They double dip as it is right now, I believe. They charge for data usage, like they charge bandwidth use from the companies that use them, and they charge you for bandwidth use because you're downloading. And then what they're going to do is they're going to ask for a third. They're going to dip again, and they're going to ask for money from like big companies like Google and Amazon. and they're going to say, you know, hey, if you want us to continue providing service to you, then you're going to send us money. And so they're going to take money from Google, and then they'll continue to provide adequate service to Google. With the trouble being that little websites that can't afford these fees that the ISPs are going to want to charge will basically get shut out of the running. They won't be able to afford the internet, or they won't be able to afford reasonable speeds. So like startup companies on the internet will not be possible without net neutrality. If the world isn't ideal. Like I say, in an ideal world, it'll be great. Everybody will own a cat. And no one will be allergic. But in a less than ideal world, there's a lot of potential for wrongdoing. Now, in an ideal world, however, if we get net neutrality, then what they'll do is they will force everyone to maintain equal speeds, and so you won't get screwed by this. You won't get triple dipped on anything. You'll just get everything, it'll be exactly as we do it now. Net neutrality, nothing will change, basically. If net neutrality is established, if they get a regulation in there, then you won't be screwed by anybody any more than you already are. And a lot of us are already being screwed. Actually, the U.S. infrastructure is starting to get a little older compared to a lot of the developed world. We're starting to get people who complain about that. More in rural areas is where it's worse. But in some places it's just not as good as you'd find it elsewhere. But that's a general U.S. problem. We're also having issues with our roads. We are a very large country, and we don't fill up a lot of the space. We have more land per person. We have more land per capita than a lot of countries do. So infrastructure is always a little bit more expensive for us. But yes, but that's the ideal. In the ideal world, that's how that's going to work. However, in a not-so-ideal world, you also have a lot of regulations involved, a lot of regulators, and there's no telling how exactly they're going to lay out the net neutrality rules or what's going to happen. Some people want to switch over to a Title II sort of deal, where what this will be is that they'll make it to where ISPs have to function in the same way as like your phone service providers. And they'll follow a bunch of regulations for the phone service providers, with the problem being that the regulations set aside for phone service providers are really not designed to be used for internet service providers. So it's kind of an imperfect fix. It's one that would prevent them from throttling data or doing things with your data or just screwing with you, but it would create more chaff than we've had in the past, be a little bit less efficient. So yes, it's hard to say where they're going to go with it, but that's kind of where the debate is, basically. That's sort of the idea. There are these ideal solutions for things that people want to say, like, this will fix everything. And then there's kind of the real world, where most likely, most people you're finding the overwhelming support is for net neutrality, because nobody trusts Comcast to be a good, reliable company. They have a terrible reputation. Also, too, there's been just an overwhelming amount of backlash against the merger between Comcast and Time Warner. Like, people sent in thousands of angry comments. I can't remember how many. It was like 600,000 angry comments or something like that on the FCC's website. So it's been, not very popular companies, internet service providers. But that is the net neutrality debate as it currently is. I've been keeping up with it. But like I say, they keep kind of, like, they sort of show up and they're like, well, here's something I think will make, this will make Time Warner and Comcast happy, and maybe it'll kind of slip by everyone. And everybody goes, no, just give us the full deal, quit screwing around. And so they keep doing that. So I don't know where they're actually going to go with it. I think that maybe they were for a while hoping that it would kind of blow over, and they were sort of laying low. And it appears not to be blowing over, though. People care about their internet. So many of us survive on the internet. I survive on the internet. I make my living there these days. So yeah, a lot of people, it's too important. They don't, like, if you told them, like, I'm going to screw up your internet, then they would get really mad. So I don't think they're going to be able to get away with putting in anything that wouldn't be satisfactory. They might try, but I don't think they'll get away with it. So, yes, that is net neutrality. Bit of a short one today compared to the half-hour stuff that I've been doing, but I don't know, an interesting subject all the same, and I suppose I will catch you guys later.